Jim's been working with the ERP software since the late 90s. Very seasoned and extremely professional, has a great reputation in the market. And with that said, Jim, I'll go ahead and let you begin. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that very nice introduction, Adrienne. Appreciate that.
No problem.
So we're going to get right to it today. We're going to talk about how to put your Sage ERP, or as Adrienne mentioned, really any of your ERP systems or accounting systems on autopilot when it comes to your AR collections activities. And we're going to actually show you how to reduce your receivables by at least 20% in just 6 months, if not significantly more. And we're going to profile one of our customers on one of the Sage ERP platforms that actually had some significant results well above that 20% mark. But I'll save the good stuff for the presentation. So as soon as my computer catches up with me, we're going to dig right in. So one of the things we're going to talk about first is just the problem. And it's my personal opinion that there's an accounts receivable crisis out there. Accounts receivable for most businesses is your number one or your number two largest asset sitting on your books. Yet very few of us ever pay attention to that. You know, we spend a lot of time and effort sending out invoices to the customers, working our butts off to land sales for products and services. And then we send the invoice and there's like this big black hole. It's almost like we turn off the lights and we have no idea what happens between the time the invoice goes out and the time that we receive payment. And oftentimes we let that process stagnate too long. Now we would never do that in the sales process, right? You know, we work hard, spend a lot of money to generate qualified business opportunities. We then manage that pipeline effectively. It seems kind of odd to me that we wait after we've sent an invoice to actually do something about it, right, to collect on it. And if you really think about it, collections on your AR is nothing more than completing the sales process. If you've sold something to somebody and they don't pay you for it, have you really sold anything? You really haven't. What I wanted to point out here with this slide is that there's an organization called the Credit Research Foundation. They did a study in 2011, so relatively recent, and they found that 26% of businesses have automated some portion of their accounts receivable collections. Now, I'll actually argue this a little bit because the Credit Research Foundation typically targets larger organizations running like an SAP or an Oracle. And sure, those larger organizations have probably automated something, right, 26% of them. But the market space that we sell into, the market that we developed Anytime Collect for, is really for that small and growing enterprise market. Companies using Intuit, QuickBooks, Sage Peachtree, Sage Mass 90, Sage 100 now, Sage 300 being ACPAC, Sage 500, Microsoft Dynamics, Epicor, you know, these mid-market applications. I would argue that this number is not 26%. And if we took a poll as far as the people on the call today, I bet you pretty much none of you have done anything in respect to AR automation other than potentially sending out the invoices via email. So I really think that we have a huge opportunity to improve every small business and mid-sized business, anywhere from $1 million in revenue and maybe 100 accounts, on up to companies that have maybe 500 million in revenue and several thousand accounts. We're going to take a look at that here in a little bit. I do want to talk a little bit about why it's important to automate. If we look over on the left, the traditional collections process, where you print out the aging report, you go into your CRM system to get your contacts, or maybe you go into your accounting system to get your contacts. You're going to your email system to send communication out, you're picking up the phone and calling, and then you're putting notes in maybe a CRM system or a document, and you're storing it out on the network somewhere. That whole process is just flawed. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong. You're hunting and pecking for information. It's all disparate. And what this amounts to is that you only get to spend about 20% of your time soliciting for collections or for payment. if you go with an automated solution like Anytime Collect, you're going to be able to increase that significantly to about 62%. And this was some graphs that were provided to us by Paystream Advisors. They're an analyst firm that studies this segment of the market. And this is also from Paystream. The promise of RCM, or they call it Revenue Cycle Management or Receivable Collection Management software, is dramatic improvement in receivables performance using collections automation alone. Many companies have seen reductions of 10 to 20% in DSO. For those of you on the call that may not be familiar with that term, it is days sales outstanding, and it is really the key metric that you want to track when it comes to how effective you are with collections. I'm going to give you an example of that. If I'm offering net 30 terms to a customer and they're taking me 60 days to pay, my DSO is at 60 days, right? I've got a huge improvement there. 10% improvement means I'm getting paid, 6 days faster, so almost a week faster. And most companies implementing systems like Anytime Collect that we're going to look at are getting at least 10 to 20% reductions. 25% reduction in your past due receivables overall, and a 15 to 25% reduction in bad debt reserves. We're also going to take a look at how that can impact your bottom line. Most companies, industry average, are writing off about 4% of their credit sales annually. So if I'm, for every $1 million that I'm selling on credit to my customers, I'm writing off about $4,000. You multiply that, obviously if you're a $10 million company, you're looking at $40,000 you're writing off annually. You get some improvements there, and you can have some pretty significant savings. Another thing from the Paystream report, and by the way, we do have a copy of the report if any of you on the call would like it. I'll get you my contact information at the end, and you can just email me and we'll send it over to you. But with the advent of software as a service and cloud computing, scale has become less of an issue, and thereby allowing smaller organizations to justify automation in this area. Now, if you look at, I'm going to draw a couple of correlations here for you. If you look at CRM software, right, Salesforce automation software, it's been around forever, dating back to the days of ACT and Telemagic. But CRM really didn't become popular until maybe the mid to late 1990s. And now, if you're any sized organization whatsoever, you're using something for CRM. I think that is identical to what's going on with the RCM market today. RCM, up until about maybe 5 years ago, was really reserved for the larger company running an Oracle, an SAP, JD Edwards, maybe a BPIX, and then one of the higher-end Infor products. It just wasn't too expensive, right? You'd be looking at an investment of a minimum of $20,000 to put a system in. And so for the small business, that just wasn't, it wasn't gonna cut it. What we've done, and we're one of the few in this space, is we've developed Anytime Collect really for the small business. We removed the complexity, but we've kept a lot of the functionality that is needed for the automation, some rules engines and such like that. And we brought the price down significantly, down to $89 a month per user to start. So very low end to get into the application. As I mentioned, we are cloud deployed. It's a Microsoft Click Once technology, so you have options. I know a lot of people don't want to put their data out on the cloud or on the internet. You can actually keep your data within a SQL database within your domain, protected within your firewall, or you could go with a hosted Microsoft SQL Azure database, and then the client application that we've written is deployed via the cloud, then accesses that data securely. Again, whether within your firewall or out on the cloud. Again, pricing starting at $89 per user per month. You can either buy it or you can subscribe to it. You can either host it or you can install it on premise. And we do also have a portal available for your credit reps that would be making the phone calls, managing your collections, for sales reps, and we do also have a portal available for customers as well if you wanted to do some customer self-service. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about systems maintenance services. This is one of our customers. We recently completed a webinar with them, and they shared some pretty interesting information with us that I think all of you on the call today are going to appreciate. They're on the Sage 500 platform for their ERP system. They were founded in 1981, so they've been in business 32 years. They've got 600 employees. And they operate 90 global service centers. Okay, so they're a pretty good-sized organization. They have 3,100 customers. There's a lot of you on the call today that may not be as big as them by revenue or by employee size, but you may have more customers. But if you look at their customers, what's interesting to me is that their customers represent 60% of the Dow Jones. So it's kind of a who's who in the business world. They provide network management services to businesses. So if I'm a company like Hershey's or Kraft or Dell, for example, and I don't want to manage my own servers, my own disaster recovery, backups, all that stuff, I'll outsource that to systems maintenance. They'll have contractors that'll actually come in and do that for me. Okay. And customer retention is real big for them. Their customer retention rate's at about 99.7%. So their collection strategy is kind of centered around customer retention. We're going to take a look at that here in a minute. So their problem, and the problem facing a lot of you on the call today, is that they had a lot of disparate systems. Okay. Some of you on the call may only have one person whose part-time job is collections. It could be your AR clerk, could be a controller, could be your CFO, could be your president, for all I know. Some of you on the call may have a little more formalized group with 2 or 3 people managing collections. Some of these responsibilities just could fall on you, maybe an office manager. But it doesn't really matter the size. You can still get some benefits from Anytime Collect. In the case of systems maintenance, they had 4 collectors spread across 3 different states. Again, using the Sage 500 system, and like most of the Sage or any of the accounting and ERP packages designed for a mid-market or smaller enterprise, there's very little functionality in terms of credit collections management. I mean, you can make a memo on an account, and you can print an aging report. That's pretty much it. Decentralized, they had spreadsheets galore. They were kind of in that proverbial Excel hell. They had no management reporting. At the time, they had 2,000 customers and were trying to manage 3,000 invoices. So let's look a little deeper at what they do and some of the problems. They have a very complex contract invoice. So if I'm, as you can imagine, if I'm systems maintenance and I'm doing services for Kraft as an example, I might have a contract out there for multiple years, and those contracts could have literally tens of thousands of line items for the services that I'm providing, which made it very difficult for them to find the invoice that they needed to work on, let alone the line within the invoice, as well as, if they had a dispute, then they'd have to find the person that actually performed the service so they could try to get some resolution on that. Very decentralized time and material invoice billing. So they had to go through hundreds of engineers, again, to find out who actually performed the service. And the decentralized collections group had different processes, different backgrounds, different talents and skills, and different understandings. So they kind of took a step back and said, what can we do to really leverage the skill set of our collectors and our employees? Some more of their problems. They had difficulty coordinating between multiple collection agents within their organization. What they were doing before is they were splitting out their customer lists into different Excel files and then putting them out on a network share or emailing them, and there's really no rhyme or reason to how they were breaking it up. So they would have problems where, they might have 2 or 3 collectors that are working off the same spreadsheet, because they didn't know which one was theirs, and they're calling the same company about the same things. Or maybe the invoice ended up on my list to call, and there was another invoice for the same customer on Adrian's list. And they just didn't really have a good way to manage that. Inconsistency, obviously, if you're working from spreadsheets, things that are disparate from your system, you're going to have some inconsistencies. They had no ability to really review history on what they had talked to this customer about before. You know, do I have credit problems with this customer? Are there invoices that are in dispute already that I should be talking to them about when I'm calling about these new invoices? And when they were escalating their credit issues, you know, they call the customer and they say, you know, I just have payment issues right now. I can't pay you. I don't have any cash. They need to escalate that to somebody else in the organization to manage. They would then have to go back into their email, dig up all the communications, go get all their notes, maybe fill in the gaps, and then hand that whole packet off to the person that was going to manage the escalation. From a management perspective, there really was no personnel management. It was very difficult for them, no reporting. And as a result, their day sales outstanding were at 67. Okay? I don't know what their average credit terms are, but I believe they're in and around that 30-day mark. So 67 is not very good. Industry average is 61. So they definitely had a lot of room for improvement. So we were real lucky. We had a great contact over at Systems Maintenance, gentleman by the name of Steve. And Steve started by taking a look at kind of the problem and documenting what was going on. And then he set some goals. And his goals were pretty simple. I want to implement a measurable collections methodology. Measurable meaning I can look at things like days sales outstanding, understand where I'm at, put some best practices in place, some automation in place, some workflow and rules and reporting in place, and manage that process until I can get that DSO reduced. I want to have a better process of managing my accounts on who's handling what, other than an Excel spreadsheet that I have to manually download and send out to my collectors. Escalation tracking was critical for them. They needed to resolve that in a very timely manner to avoid, you know, bad debt write-off. And obviously that impacted their cash flow. You know, not digging through emails to understand what happened or to do the handoff for escalations. And their goal, really the two bottom line goals here, one is that they wanted to obtain a payment from the customer within 30 to 60 days. Seems reasonable. With a target DSO of 55 days within the first year. Before we look at some of their results and how they accomplished those results, I want to talk a little bit more about this accounts receivable crisis. PayStream says that most companies have not automated this process. We talked about that. ERP systems have limited functionality. But companies continue to invest money to administer tasks that could be automated. I tell people all the time, you're paying for Anytime Collect whether you buy it or not, because you have inefficiencies in your business. You're writing off more revenue than you should be because you're letting invoices go too late. In fact, we don't have the statistics in this presentation, but if you have invoices that are over 3 months past due, 26% of them are uncollectible. So that's, if you can resolve disputes and identify problems earlier, you can get more money. And we're going to show you what Systems Maintenance did, which is pretty incredible. AR automation is most common in large organizations. Smaller organizations stand the most to lose without it. I would also argue this one. A lot of companies look at AR automation and receivables automation, and they say, you know what, it's not for me, I'm too small. I disagree completely, and this is why. If you look at a small business, they're the ones that don't have a formalized credit and collections department. They don't have the best practices. They don't have the staff, and they're busy. If you look at even the smallest organizations running Peachtree and QuickBooks or Mass 90 or ACPAC, it's going to be an AR clerk that's managing collections. They may not like to be on the phone. They are not trained on how to collect effectively. And they don't have the tools available, and they also have other duties in the organization. They might be the office manager. They might be doing payables. They could be doing all kinds of different things. So who really manages your #1 asset in your organization? Chances are nobody, or the only time that they pay attention to it is when you're having cash flow problems, and at that point it's too late. So I would really argue that it's the small business that stands the most to gain from automation. Now, if we look at Systems Maintenance, they didn't have a system prior to 2012. And Sage 500 really offered them basic things, customer notes, aging reports, no workflow, no automation. Again, PayStream, this is in the report, too little collections activity, erratic collections efforts, high adjustment volumes, inconsistent credit assessments, fragmented information, inadequate reporting, and a difficult economy. This probably sounds familiar to a lot of you on the call today. Anytime Collect resolve every one of these issues by giving them the ability to balance the work queues, centralize information, and then have some consistency in the activities built on best practices. Here's another one. So if you think about it, everybody knows this, right? It's called the Frito Principle, or Frito Law. 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. So if I've got 1,000 customers, there's only 200 of them that represent 80% of my revenue. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a way to prioritize your collections? That way you're at least calling those top 200 accounts more often and resolving those issues, because that has the biggest impact from a non-payment standpoint on your bottom line. What if you could assign those 200 accounts to one person? They could build a relationship with the accounts payable department, and they could understand reasons for non-payment from those customers. You could be a lot more effective, and that's one of the things that we do with Anytime Collect. And we're going to look at how systems maintenance improved their business through the 3 areas that PayStream suggests that companies get some value. One is through processing efficiency, so really the automation side, lowering their costs, and having enhanced visibility and control. A couple more slides, and we're going to get back to systems maintenance. I am going to read this. So this is from the report. The key innovation of business-to-business collection software is workflow automation. It's a strategy engine integrated with your AR data with a tickler system. They call it a tickler system. To me, it's a reminder and alert, activity logs, account status, previous actions taken that can drive the next logical step. We're going to talk about this here in a little bit as well. We have the ability to build workflows. So what do you do when an invoice is going to be due in the next 3 days or next 5 days and you have not received a payment in your accounting system, or at least payment in full? You can have the system automatically, almost hands-off, send a reminder to every one of those customers that matches that profile. Nice friendly reminder, hey, we didn't get payment on this invoice, it's due in the next 3 to 5 days, please remit payment. What do you do when the customer becomes past due on an invoice? Maybe the system can automatically send them a past due notice. Kind of like the reminder letter, but maybe a little harsher. At 3 days past due, you still haven't received payment, the system can schedule a call for your collector. Tag it to the invoice that violated the rule, so now they know, who am I calling, why am I calling, and they can review the invoice information, see their contacts, see all the previous history in the system, and they don't have to go hunt and peck for this. They also don't have to print the aging report, which most companies print out that aging report, and they never get to Zebra Industries, right, because Zebra is at the end of the report. So they'll start at Acme and they'll work their way down. Next time around, they don't get to Zebra. The only time they get to Zebra Industries is when there's a huge credit issue. The software can prioritize your collection activities, ensuring consistency and an efficient process. Integrated communication tools for faxing, email, invoice reprinting, or accessing the original invoice, and other forms of data exporting. We also have some tools in for auto dialing. So if you're on an account record, you click on the contact, you click a button, boom, the system dials your customer for you automatically. So now we understand kind of the value in what a system like Anytime Collect can do from an automation standpoint. Let's look at how systems maintenance implemented this. And they did it a little different than I would have, but this matches their system. What they did was they broke it up into 4 levels, realizing that each of their 4 employees had very different skill sets. So they took one person that was really, really good in making that first contact. That person then was responsible for calling every single account that had a past due balance. And what their goal was is to resend statements and invoices and to resolve those easy disputes. They call them tickets, we call them credit issues, but they were managing a lot, as you can imagine, a lot of calls on those tickets. And what would happen is if they couldn't resolve those within a period of time, that would escalate automatically, again, based on the rules, so we can do escalations. If this issue is not resolved within this time frame, it gets escalated to number 2. The second level resource that they set up in the organization was really good at doing research. They had a smaller, manageable volume of tickets that they were managing, and they could go in and dig into the disputes a little bit more, identify the field rep to perform the service, and get more information to bring that dispute to a resolution. After level 2, things start to get really serious. They're reaching a potential credit hold situation, and this is when it gets escalated to management for customer coordination, maybe a payment plan. Maybe they're going to work out some other thing, maybe a partial payment with the customer to resolve the issue. So these, as you can imagine, much smaller number of issues that they're trying to manage, but it does take a lot more time. After level 3, this is where the customer is going to be put on credit hold, and you're going to be looking at writing off the invoices. And this really is kind of almost a C-level type decision, and they dedicated one resource to that. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about our workflow engine. What we do is we can put an alert on any of the data in the system. From a sync standpoint, we're bringing in all your information from your Sage accounting system or any accounting system for that matter. Account level information, what's their credit limit, their credit terms, you know, their address, contacts, sales reps, invoices, payments, you have it. We can put an alert on that then. So if I've got a customer approaching credit hold, maybe approaching the credit limit, I can have an alert created for my collector to say, hey, you know, they may even be in good standing, but they're getting closer and closer to that credit limit. Maybe we need to look at increasing their credit limit. Maybe we need to look at why they're buying more. You know, so we can do things really at the account level. The other big one, I gave you the example earlier, you know, with the invoices, is if an invoice is coming due, send a reminder. If it's past due, send a past due notice. If it's getting further past due, schedule a call. So we can build in that escalation in that workflow. We can also do this by what we call a credit class. So if I've got government customers and industrial or commercial or consumer customers, I can create different workflow for those different groups of customers because not everybody is the same. So I got just a couple examples up here, and we've kind of walked through a number of these. One more point, RCM and CRM. A lot of people confuse this. You know, they've got the same 3 letters in them, but they are very different. I've heard a lot of people say, well, you know, this looks a lot like a CRM application, right? I can go in and look at my contacts. I can find out who my accounts receivable or accounts payable contact is. I can make a note that I called them, and I can even, you know, send emails. And I could maybe even build a little bit of workflow in there to remind me that I haven't called them in 30 days. The problem is the rest of it. CRM will let you document what you've done, but it doesn't have any of the workflow or the reports or the templates or the knowledge of what needs to be done based on the rules engine. That, to me, is the big difference. Instead of having to still print that aging report out and try to figure out who I'm calling and why, I have to still do that process with CRM and then go document what I've done. Anytime Collect was designed for receivables collections management. It is CRM built for your credit and collection department. You go in, you don't have to think. You do once because you have to set up the system and the logic, but once you set up the system, everything else, the system is basically telling you what you need to do. Okay? And that, to me, is huge. So let's look at some of the results that they got from using the SoftInsolve in the first year. We have a feature within Anytime Collect. It's called Anytime Docs. If you're using a document management system today, like Alltech, which is a popular one for Sage, you can create, obviously, a PDF copy of that invoice, store it on our network drive, and then we can map to it and make it available for the system. A couple things that are nice about that. Number one, if I'm a collector, I can go look at that original invoice. right? So I don't have to go in the accounting system. But number two, we can have the system automatically resend those invoices for you. And we don't have to recreate the invoice. We're sending the original invoice that the customer received to begin with. This is something that systems maintenance really likes. They used our tool, Anytime Docs, to print their invoices, created a PDF file, stored it on their network. And when I say created a PDF file, if I'm printing 1,000 invoices or 100 invoices, I don't get one PDF with 100 and 1,000 invoices within it. I get 100 separate invoices, or PDFs, one per invoice, or 1,000 different PDFs, one per invoice, filed appropriately to that customer. And then I can redirect that print job to a network printer if I want hard copies, or if I want to push it off to another database. They can generate statements on the fly. Again, they don't have to go into their accounting system to do this. They're on the phone with the customer and they say, hey, send me a statement. You can do that right within our application. This is another big one they loved. Emails sent and received from the software. If I send an email out and it goes from my personal inbox and then I end up on vacation and the customer replies back and says, you know what, I'm going to send you a check, or I'm not going to send you a check, nobody knows about that until I get back into the office. Or what if I'm on vacation or an extended leave? With Anytime Collect, what we allow you to do is send the emails out from the software, and then when the customer replies, it comes back into the software. So if I'm out, I can have Adrienne, for example, who's backing me up, monitor my account so she's going to see that email, so it's no longer stuck in my personal inbox. Automated communication based on the rules. Again, we talked about that. Automating anything from an email standpoint to go out, or automating the creation of a call for my collector to tell them what they need to do. Account reassignment based on collections levels. They actually look at how many accounts or how many credit issues a certain person is managing. And in cases where they're getting, really bogged down, they may reassign some accounts to some different people. CRM capabilities, they can do everything they can in CRM with all this additional functionality. And they're working from one system, right? And no spreadsheets. Lowering costs. This is a pretty big one. Significant reductions in labor through the automation. That was just within the first 6 months. They were actually able to take out of their 4 resources 50% of one of their credit manager's time and allocate it to more critical activities. And collections should not be difficult, right? We provide a quality product and service to our customer. We should be paid on time. So what Anytime Collect does is it really makes that process simpler through automation. And that's pretty significant. Significant reductions in their outstanding AR, increased cash flow. They shortened the sales to cash cycle time, so when they made that sale, they were getting their cash a lot faster. Their DSO, after 1 year of using Anytime Collect, remember they were at 67, went down to 49. That was 6 points below their original goal of 55. Now it gets even better. If you exclude, remember they had 3,100 customers. If you exclude just two of those customers that were their more challenging customers, their DSO was actually reduced from 67 down to 40 days. That's almost a month sooner they're getting their cash in their bank. Enhanced visibility and control. Notes, attachments, everything in one place. History available for escalation. Advantages gained for history and audit, and they actually had audits, internal audits, external audits. So they had everything in one place. Collection activities were measurable. They knew where their DSO was. They knew how many calls their collectors were managing. They knew how many credit issues their credit managers were handling. They knew their average days to pay by credit managers, so he was more efficient. All these metrics are readily available for them with just a few mouse clicks. Customer AP contacts. They didn't have to go into the accounting system to get them. They had them all in one system. Instant access to the account agent, invoices, payment history. And in their words, the ability to act instead of react to outstanding accounts. Equal and measurable workloads, internal audit, they're prepared. And because of the simplistic presentation capabilities of the software, they're actually now to the point where they're going to be publishing a lot of the data from Anytime Collect onto an intranet site that their sales team will be able to access. We do have sales rep users within our application. They chose not to go that route. I can't remember the reason why. But that is something we do bring to the table with Anytime Collect, is if you want your sales team to be able to review what's going on with their assigned accounts, we can make that available to them in a secured portal. Let's take a look at this. So 67, original day sales outstanding before they implemented Anytime Collect. 49 after Anytime Collect. Exclude those two accounts that were the more challenging ones. 40. That's a 40% reduction in DSO in 1 year. 27 days of cash is in their bank, not sitting on their balance sheet. Compare this to what PayStream says. 10 to 20% reduction in DSO. Systems maintenance crushed that. Now, I don't know about your organization. Maybe you guys are more effective than systems maintenance was. We do have a tool available. It's an ROI Calculator. If you go to anytimecollect.com, you can actually plug in your numbers and then put in kind of an estimate on where you want to be, maybe a 10% or 20% reduction. It'll calculate your DSO for you. It'll calculate what you're spending in your bad debt write-offs. It'll calculate your financing costs for your AR. And then you put in a number of users for the system. And it'll tell you if you're going to get an ROI and how long it's going to take you to get a return on that investment. How about this one? I almost fell out of my chair when they said this. They collected more money in 2012 than they invoiced. And you're probably sitting there saying, how in the world could they do that? It sounds illegal. What they did was, through using Anytime Collect, they were actually able to collect almost every penny of what they invoiced in 2012. Then they were able to go back and be more effective at collecting the past due balances from the previous years. Absolutely amazing. So I think we've got enough time for a quick demo. So let me go over to, let's see here. Oh, I don't know why that keeps doing that. We'll extend that. We'll go over to our Anytime Collect, and I'm going to log in.
And Jim, I'd just like to ask the audience and remind the audience, if you do have any questions, please raise your hand or go ahead and click the question mark and indicate your question manually. If you do have any questions, we can go ahead and take a break and answer any in between the presentation and the demo, if anybody has any questions. And I don't see any questions yet, Jim.
Okay. Yeah, and we're just going to run through this real quick. I know we've got 15 minutes left, so I'm going to try to do a 10-minute overview. We do have a recorded video as well if you want to review that later. It's more in-depth. I just want to give you a flavor for the software, and then after that, we're going to wrap right up with questions. Okay. So when you log in, you're going to come into kind of the home page, the landing page. Well, where I really want to go is to my dashboard. And we can set this up for a single user, for multiple users. We also have the sales rep users could be useful for maybe your president, your CFO, or your controller that isn't managing collections per se, but they want to find out what's going on with AR. Our president actually logs in. He has a login to be able to see what's going on with his money, right? So I can log in. I can see who I'm logged in as. I can see my current AR. You can get this kind of out of your accounting system, so nothing big there. But I can see my DSO trend, right? I can see where I'm at and where I want to be as far as the target goes. I can see my average days that it's taking my customers to pay me based on different invoice amounts. And these are broken up by ranges. So I can see here if I've got invoices over 30,000, and that's that little brown one, I'm actually doing pretty good because I'm focusing on it. But that $25,000 to $30,000 invoice range, I've got 50 invoices out there. My average days to pay on those is 50. So maybe I need to do some best practices or change some policies and procedures to get that number down. Then down here at the bottom, I see my top 10 customers. It's just a snapshot, right, of what's going on. I can get more information when I get into the software. We're right now just on a dashboard. And I can see that by total amount due or total cost of credit, which is pretty unique. I can define the annual percentage rate for the cost of borrowing cash, multiply that times the amount that's past due times the amount of time past due. I've figure out who's really costing me money to my bottom line beyond their agreed upon credit terms. Or I could look at it by the largest amounts over a particular aging bucket or category. Okay. And then over here on the left, I've got a cash summary. This again is coming from the system. I can find out what did I receive or expect to receive last week versus this week. I get more information, again, when I go into the software. Disputes, what do I have out there in disputes? What was my total amount due? And here's really my work queues, right? How many issues am I managing? How many did I close? What were my scheduled activities? So the way the system is designed is we have credit issues and then we have activities. A credit issue could be I have an account that has a past due balance that I need to follow up on past due invoices, right? So my issue is past due. My activities are phone calls, emails, disputes, anything like that. A credit issue could be something else, though. It could be a new customer that I'm setting up credit for. It could be an annual credit review that I'm doing with my customer. It could be a number of different things that I'm managing. So a credit issue doesn't have to be just an account that has a past due balance. And you can see the different things we can do here: phone calls, emails sent, emails received, account notes, disputes, expected payments. We also track brokered promises, which is really nice. So if I'm on the phone with Adrienne, she says, I'm going to drop you a check by next Friday. The next Friday it comes and goes. When I log that expected payment, I mark it as, hey, Adrienne promised. And the minute that date goes by and that checkbox is set to promise, the system will track that Adrienne broke her promise, which she doesn't do. She's a good pay. So that's the dashboard. A couple other things. If I'm a customer or a credit rep or a sales rep, I can come into the My Accounts section of the dashboard. And I can see the different accounts. Maybe I want to look at Aldebaran. If I'm logged in as a customer, I will see just my information being Aldebaran that I've selected here. If I'm a sales rep, I'm limited to just my assigned accounts. So I'm getting that same information, like a cash summary by customer, activities by customer, recent payments by customer, recent communications from the system by customer. And so, last communication, I can see an aging by customer and my average days to pay based on those invoice breakouts, those ranges by customer. So pretty insightful information. I also have the ability to look at some inquiries online. I can look at my statement. I can look at communications. Again, if I'm a customer, I couldn't see the private communication. I could look at invoices. I could look at payments. Okay. I can even drill down into that information to get more, more granular. Yeah, I got to go ahead and pick customer. Go ahead and pick Aldebaran. It's going to load up for me. And so I've got all these invoices out here. I can pick one up and look at it, look at the detail on it. If I happen to pick one that has, let's see here. Yeah, I don't see any that have payments. You could actually drill down to the payment as well. So that's kind of the dashboard stuff, right? You get a lot of information online, and this is why it's really nice for a sales rep or casual user that doesn't have to actually do collections. We put everything out here. From here, they click the collection software button, and that's going to launch up the application. I'm going to blow through this real quick. There's a in-product dashboard, which gives me a lot of the same information I had online. I can go to my accounts grid, so I can see my account. So if a customer calls and happens to be Miller, I can just come in here and find Miller. I can sort it. Let me scroll up here. I want to get to my one account. I can drill in and see the invoices. If I'm creating PDFs of those invoices, I double-click, and I can launch that and view the original invoice right from the system. I can save these tabs up here, so maybe I want to look at this by a sales rep or a credit rep or you name it, right? Pull that up here. It's just like Excel. You guys are going to get used to this real quick. Maybe I want to look at, let's say I want to do an aging by sales rep. Boom. Everything in the system, I right-click, I can export, I can customize the labels on these, I can reformat them, I can hide columns. So it's very flexible. We'll go back to my standard view. From here, I can maintain my contacts. I can add account notes. I can look at customer documents, whether those are invoices, quotes, sales order statements, bills of lading, shipping documents, contracts, you name it. I can maintain the customer information. The other thing I could do is I can work from a calendar, or I can work from my issues screen. If I work from my calendar, I'm going to go ahead and grab maybe a couple days. I've got activities that have been created for me by the system, and I can then maybe schedule them or maybe just work off of these. I'm going to go ahead and then click on the Communicate button, and it's going to launch my communications wizard that will walk me through what do I need to do. Okay, so I can work right from the calendar if I so choose. Okay, that loaded up behind, so there we go. I'm actually going to go to one where I know I have a little better information. I am working with demo data. I'm going to go to my issues, and this is going to show me all my issues. I have them grouped by my user. I'm going to look at my first attempt phone calls. And this one is for Aldebaran. Let's go ahead and go into my communications for this one. So again, I didn't have to think about what do I need to do. The system is telling me I'm making a phone call because I have an invoice or multiple invoices that are 15 to 29 days past due. Okay, my P1, I coded it this way. It's my first attempt phone call. So let's go ahead and drill into the activity that was created. Go into edit mode. So I'm making a phone call. Let's take a look and see why I'm calling. The system has tagged all the invoices that violated that rule, and we do have escalations. I can see that I've got 2 that are in dispute. I can see the invoice amounts that are currency. We are multi-currency. We're also multi-company from your ERP perspective. I can see the dispute amount that was entered before, dispute dates, all kinds of information. Promise to pay dates, resolve dates on the dispute, the ERP company, status, customer POs, lots of information out here, okay? So now I know what I'm calling about. Let's go ahead and make my call. I'm going to go to my contacts. I've got Jeff and Larry, so I'm going to go ahead and call Jeff. And I can either dial the number or click this little phone icon, which could then dial out via Skype, a soft phone, which is a virtual phone that utilizes voice over IP, or it can be set up to work with my network phone system, dial out to the customer, dial me as the collection rep at my desk. I pick up, I hear the phone ringing, Jeff picks up, and we're in contact. So that's that auto dialer we talked about earlier. I clicked off of that. So then it's going to put some notes in here for me automatically saying that I made a phone call to Jeff. Let's say that Jeff was heading into a meeting, asked me to send him some information and schedule a follow-up. So I can put my notes in here. Since I told you and we're running out of time, I'm just going to put detailed notes. We put that follow-up, and again, you can see here I can escalate this. We can also have the system escalate this. So, if it's over $10,000 past due, it can automatically go to my CFO to manage, my controller. If it's over a certain amount of days past due in a certain amount, it can be automatically escalated, or I can just do it manually. But I'm going to leave this for me. I can leave it all day, meaning something I need to get to, or maybe Jeff asked me to call him at noon tomorrow because he's not going to be there. It's a Saturday. I'd schedule that then probably for Monday, right? And we put a duration in for the call, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then real quick, I do want to show you an email. So we're going to go in here and we're going to send an email. I'm going to go into my invoices. I want them to pay attention to these 2 that are in dispute. I'm going to attach those to my email. I'm going to send them a statement. So we're going to create a mail merge document that are on the fly and send them a statement. Again, these can be automated en masse, so it can go out to 100 or thousands of different accounts. Maybe I want to review that before I send it out. I'm going to go over creating the email here. It's going out through my Exchange server, either from me personally or on behalf of the credit department of my company. But we are bringing that back in. Let's go ahead and send that to Jeff. In the subject. We do have auto signatures. He's going to send that out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go over to my inbox and Google and pretend that I'm Jeff. There's my email that I sent to Jeff. He can review this information. He can then reply back. Okay, we will pay the disputes immediately. He can send that back, and then I'm going to go back in Anytime Collect. And I'm just going to browse here and click my little refresh button. And I'm going to look at that P1 call. And let me refresh one more time. It doesn't look like it picked it up yet. All right, so there is my email I sent. Please pay us. There is the receipt of the email or the response back from my customer. Again, everything in one system, not my personal inbox. And then we just go ahead and close this down. So in essence of time, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on much else. We do have a number of different templates that you can create. You can create variations of these. Maybe you want first attempt email, second attempt. Maybe you want different versions of statements. We also have different views of information. So maybe I want to look at, I got to grab some customers here. Maybe I want to look at tagged and disputed invoices as an example. And maybe I want to look at a promise to pay, which I have a setting on this. So maybe I want to look at disputes. Maybe I want to look at issues and activities that are my collectors are managing, right? So I can get a lot more granular in the detail. I can look at it by the type. I can look at it by the person it's assigned to. So let's return back to the presentation and wrap it on up. I've got my contact information on the screen, and I'm going to kick it back over to Adrian to handle any of the questions that we've received. So jot that down. I know we are recording the presentation today, and a link will be sent out to you. So Adrian, that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Jim. That's a great presentation. I don't see any questions as of yet, but as you're thinking of them, audience, I just wanted to present a couple polls out there, if I may. If you can answer this poll while you might be thinking of questions, how are you handling credit and collections today? If I could ask the audience to answer that question, that would be great.
While we wait for those answers to come in, Adrian, I do also want to mention that we are a channel-driven company. So if you're on the call today and you're working with a partner for your Sage product, the process that we work through is that you would contact them, or you could contact us and tell us who they are, and then we'll get in contact with them. But we do like to engage with the channel partner because they know your business obviously better than we do. They have that relationship with you. And so we prefer to work in tandem with them. Obviously, if you're on QuickBooks or Peachtree, you might not have a partner that you're working with, in which case you can work with us directly.
Okay, and I'm going to close that poll out, and then I'm going to ask one more poll. And if the audience, if I can ask you to answer this one last question, we'd be very appreciative. And Jim, I do have a question. What products does this work with? How many? What clients do you have? How many clients do you have on Microsoft-based products? Microsoft
Gotcha.
Dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, from a standard integration standpoint, we can integrate to anything. We have a CSV flat file interface. It takes a little bit more work to set up. So we've integrated some pretty odd systems, some that haven't even really been marketed or sold in a number of years. But we do have, and we maintain, standard integrations to most of the Sage products, some of the Microsoft products, as well as Epicor and QuickBooks. So from the Sage side, I know that was kind of the topic of the day, was Sage 300, 500, 100, Sage 50 US, which is Peachtree. As far as the Microsoft side, I don't have those numbers in front of me on how many customers. That was a relatively newer integration that we did into some of the Dynamics products, so I'd have to guess it's probably under a dozen right now, but I could definitely look into that. I think I'm trying to think what else you might want to know on the integration standpoint. We really haven't found a system yet that we couldn't integrate to. You know, if they can get the data out, which pretty much every system can, even if it's via ODBC connections, we can pull it into our system.
Okay, so with that said, Jim, would you like to close with anything further?
You know, I would just encourage everybody to take a look at their accounts receivable. If you don't know where you're at today with your DSO, you know, go to anytimecollect.com, and there's a button that says calculate your ROI. That'll let you put in your information. It'll then tell you where you're at. It'll actually calculate your day sales outstanding for you. And then if you plug in some additional information, it will also calculate what you're spending, right? What are you writing off every year? It'll calculate, you know, based on, you know, some improvements, 10 to 20%, put in something reasonable. And it'll tell you then if you could actually save some money with Anytime Collect. And I guarantee you you're going to be able to. I mean, the system is very easy to use. Can be implemented in less than a day. I mean, literally it takes about an hour to configure, an hour to set up with the administrator. So we show you how to do some of the setup. A couple hours of end user training, and you're up and running, and you're gaining the benefits. So that's really about it, Adrian. I just would really encourage everybody to take a look at where they're at today. We do also have a white paper available called 17 Things that you should be doing to reduce accounts receivable. Some of that is built around Anytime Collect, but some of them are just tips, best practices that you could implement without a system. So if you want that white paper, again, drop my contact information down. I'd be happy to send that. We did also recently develop a new white paper called 6 Steps to Creating a Business Credit Policy. And we do also have a business credit application template available. So if you're interested in any of that type of information, contact me and we'll get it over to you.
Okay, well, I don't see any more questions. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, Jim, very much for your time and sharing this information with us. And we will be in touch with the audience after the presentation. As Jim stated, we are recording this, and we'll send you a copy of the recording as well. And with that said, I just want to wish everyone a very nice weekend.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Adrian.
Thank you. All right, everybody, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.